Our speaker has been a Toastmaster since 2016. She has served as a Division A Director, Area Director, President of North Tustin Sensational Speakers for 2 terms, Vice President of Education and Vice President of Public Relations. In 2020, Giselle led Division A with 22 clubs to President's Distinguished. She was honored with the Division Director of the Year Award and Spirit of Excellence Award from the Founders District. Kind of makes me feel like a slacker. Outside of Toastmasters, Giselle Wynn is the co-founder of LifeOps, pronounced LifeOps, Learning Labs, international speaker, and executive at 2 educational foundations. She leads teams to create innovative educational programs to promote active inquiry and project-based learning at PYL-USD. Giselle is the president of Inside the Outdoors Foundation, an environmental educational organization administered by the Orange County Department of Education that supports 27 school districts in Southern California. Prior to her nonprofit work, Giselle worked at the Coca-Cola Company for nearly 2 decades. As the Director of National Retail Sales, Giselle managed global customer relations, where she developed brands and marketed consumer products. With an MBA and Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, Giselle won awards leading teams with responsibilities for global supply chain, customer management, project management, leadership, and change management. Please help me welcome Giselle Wynn.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. And what an honor to be with you today and to have Barbara and Daniel Fung support this workshop. It is such a privilege for me to be here, and I'm going to share my screen to share some slides that I would like to walk you through. All right, so in my career, I've had the privilege of working with these multi-billion, multinational brands. Some were my employers and others were my customers, but I had a chance to work with them and really intimately know how to build a brand. So today, what I'd like to share is some insights and lessons learned from my 25 years career working with these corporate brands, and share some insights that I hope will help you develop your personal brand. So let's get to it. I'd like to answer 2 primary questions. The first is, why do you need a personal brand? And then number 2, how to create a personal brand that reflects you. When I was reading through marketing books, I couldn't find models to help illustrate or help you visualize. So I created a model called the SBA, Seeing, Believing, and Achieving model, with 3 phases and 9 steps to help you create your brand. And then there's also 3 exercises throughout our time together. And I'd like to ask if you could pull some pen and paper aside so that when we get to the exercises, you'll be able to participate. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of information that I'm going to go through, and as quick as I can. I'm compressing a course that's 8 hours into about 40 minutes. So let's get started. Daniel, if you could launch the poll question. I'd like to know whether you have a personal brand. If you could answer that question, I would greatly appreciate it. Do you have a personal brand? Do you see the question? Because I'm not seeing it on my screen for some reason. You have it? Please give me a thumbs. Okay, awesome.
I think most people have answered, and I'm showing the result right now on the screen.
Oh, all right. Wonderful.
We have 44% yes, 19% no, not sure, 38%. I think we all come to the right place today.
Okay, all right, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I couldn't see it on my screen. So it sounds like most of you do have a personal brand, although 44% is a little lower than I was expecting. But I think whether you realize it or not, you have a personal brand. Let me just ask you, what do others say about you when you're not in the room? If you're working, what do your bosses or coworkers say about you? And then online, when was the last time you Googled your name? All of that information contributes to your personal brand. And if you're working, here are also some additional reasons why you should consider creating a brand. So 85% of hiring managers report that the candidate's personal brand influenced their hiring decision. And this information may actually be a little bit higher since the data that I have collected here was from 2019. Additionally, 70% of employers use social media to screen candidates during the hiring process. My guesstimate is if you were to run this survey today, it would be closer to 90%. And then, of course, our social media. These are the top 10 social networks by size. And as you can see, 60%, close to 60% of the world's population are on the internet. And many of us are accessing the internet through our mobile devices. And of course, these social networks are not going away. They continue to grow. So from 2019 to 2021, you could see LinkedIn climbing, which is at 5%, which is lower. I apologize, the video kind of covers up the data. Facebook has grown 23%, YouTube 21%, Pinterest 77%. So many of us use the social media networks. Our brand online is our life. During the holidays, I posted where I spent our Christmas. I also post hikes that I've gone to and different events that I'm involved in at work. So our life is and has become our marketing. And everything that we do communicates, whether it's online or on site. There's a quote here from Jeff Bezos, former president or CEO of Amazon. A brand to a company is like a reputation for a person. So what I'd like to do is to ask 3 questions to kind of prime the pump a little bit to help you develop an intentional reputation and a personal brand. Because many of us post online without really thinking how it affects our brand, right? It's convenient to just show anything that we're doing. Sometimes you see too much information. Sometimes you see information that does not really contribute to the brand that you want to develop. So if we want to create an intentional brand, here are some questions to ask yourself before you post. What do you want to achieve with this post? How do you want to be remembered? Or what do you want to be remembered for? And who do you want to connect with? Or who do you want to help? Who are your people? So let's look at some famous brands. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In the chat box, if you could type a few adjectives, what do you think when you see an image of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Tough, smart, fit, a warrior, an advocate, strong strength, fierceness, successful, tenacious, doing the right thing. I love it. Yes, absolutely. First Jewish woman, but the second female justice who liberated women's rights and transformed legislation and policy to support gender equality. That's fantastic. All right. Ooh. Let me, actually, this is, for some reason, my screen is a little bit fidgety. All right. Can you see Martin Luther King? All right. What comes to your mind when you think of Martin Luther King Jr.? I know that we're aiming high right now. Equality, freedom, character, inspiring, pioneer, selfless. Wonderful adjectives to describe Martin Luther King: visionary, brave, a hero. Absolutely, I agree with all those. All right, now it's your turn. What are some adjectives you would like to use to describe you? And what do you want others to know or say about you? You could keep it private or you could share. It's entirely up to you. But now I'm getting you to think about how to build a personal brand. And that is exactly where we want to go. So, of course, I have to give you a personal example since I'm talking about building a personal brand. So I'm going to share a quick story about myself. My journey is similar to other Vietnamese Americans' journey. I was born in Vietnam. I came to the United States in one of those boats. We had empty hands, no bank account, and basically nothing except the determination and the will to rebuild our lives. And it took a lot of hard work and my parents' sacrifice and dedication to help my siblings and I to accomplish what we have accomplished by sending us to school and helping us to develop our careers. And somehow I landed in one of the most iconic, from a brand perspective, companies in the world. I was with them for nearly 2 decades, and I supported the third largest retail customer in the world. We had a business plan of about 600 million. And during this process, we supported a lot of big name customers, Costco being one of them, and others that I've shared with you. But what really matters to me after all these years is that when I spend time thinking about my brand, I'm really promoting what I deeply care about. And I want to reach out to others who are in the nonprofit space. So earlier when Barbara mentioned that I lead 2 nonprofits, the Reach Foundation is one of them. They are a nonprofit educational foundation that supports the Placentia Yorba Linda Unified School District. And Inside the Outdoors, they are a environmental education foundation. And the Learning Labs is a company that I recently launched with my husband. So to answer the 3 questions that I asked of you earlier, and I've thought hard about this, I want to live and achieve a purposeful and meaningful life. And when I take my last breath, I want to be remembered as a good mother, a friend, and a difference maker. Wow. I'm getting emotional. And who do I want to help? Who are my people? I want to help the youth and the underrepresented. That's what my life is about. So, why do you need a personal brand? Here are my opinions, but you get to choose your own. I think that when you have a personal brand, you could create your own opportunities. You could define your own narrative. When somebody talks about Giselle Wen, I get to publish and I get to tell my story. And then when you're doing the work, and Toastmasters provides such a great forum for us to discover our own inner purpose. And then we get to showcase our unique contributions and share our gifts and skills to the world. So how do you create your personal brand? And person here is the emphasis. Now, I've read a lot of books, and a lot of the stuff that I'm about to share with you are my own creation, but there are two books that influence these models that I'm about to share with you. The first is The Brand Mapping Strategy from Karen Leland and The Science of Storytelling. I highly recommend these books. They're awesome. So the first model that I'd like to share, it is the SBA model, seeing, believing, and achieving. It has 3 phases. And I learned this from my high school badminton team coach, who was the United States Olympics coach. And I remember playing badminton in high school 4 years in a row. I remember practicing every day when we were in season for 3 hours a day. And I remember walking out of the gym drenched in sweat. Sweat was dripping from my body and I was aching all over, and calluses were covering my feet. And we worked so hard for all these years. But in my 3rd year, my junior year in 1986, we reached the finals in CIF, in the Southern California division. And the day before the big game, our coach made us all lay down on the gym floor, and she made us close our eyes. And she made us visualize and see ourselves playing the game. And she said 90% of the game is mental, because we had practiced and worked hard to build the skills and the techniques to play the game. The rest of it is all mental. She helped us to believe that we could win. And then on that day, the next day, someday in May of 1986, we won the CIF championship for Garden Grove High School. And if I were to apply that to you personally, as you think about building your brand, you have skills and gifts and talent and all of these unique abilities that not everybody knows about. Only you know your gifts and your talents. These are gems, my friend. These are gems that you want to hone and develop and collect. And then what I'd like for you to do is to start organizing it. Put some time and effort, believe in your gifts, and start creating your brand, like that bracelet that you see in that middle box. And then afterwards, we're going to talk about ways you could activate your brand and achieve your brand mission. Right? So these are the 3 phases of the SBA model. Now, under those 3 phases, there are 9 steps, right? So you don't have to do it in sequence. These could happen at different times. But if you do these 3 steps under each of those phases, you'll get closer to seeing, believing, and achieving your personal brand. Another thing that I want to mention is this is not a 45-minute session. Building your brand takes time. When corporations develop their brand, they have teams of hundreds of people segmenting their market, understanding who their target customer, and understanding their products, and dissecting it from a social, economic, demographic, psychographic elements, right? But what your job is to dive deep, understand yourself first, to understand your strength. Knowing oneself, my friend, is where it all begins. We're also going to give you some techniques to assess your limiting beliefs, identify your brand proposition. We won't be able to cover that in detail. You'll also get a chance to practice how to create a you statement, define your target audience, tell your signature story. We're not going to have time to cover that because you practice that in Toastmasters. And then we're going to talk about how to cultivate a community online, especially on LinkedIn, and how you could find and join your tribe. Again, this is an ongoing journey to create your brand. And we're only going to be able to cover about 3 of these items today. So our first exercise is, Barbara, if you could put 60 seconds on the timer, I'd like for you to answer this question. What do you or your club, because I understand that some of you are here because you are interested in building a brand for your club, or if you have a business that you're trying to grow, what do you want to be known for? What are your strengths, your skills, your talent? What do you want to be known for? You could write just a few adjectives, or you could write a complete sentence. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. What do you want to be known for? Thank you all for contributing. I'm a gladiator, April. I love it. Chemo warrior, caring encourager, action taker, leader, empowering others. I love it. Thomas, honest, creative, productive.
It's time, Giselle.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. You guys are inspiring. I appreciate you for sharing. For me, what I wrote down as we were talking is fun, smart, and driven. Those are my 3 words. All right. So the first step, know and love oneself. Why is this so hard? And when I've had a session in the past, people have literally asked me, I live with myself. I know myself. What is there to work on, right? And so if you're not used to, I think Mike Carr talked about this earlier this morning. If you participated in the keynote speaker, he was fantastic. He talked about finding a calm and quiet space just for 30 seconds for you to introspect and think about your day, right? So that you could tap into your own creativity. So to help me visualize who I wanted to be and what I want my brand to communicate, I really have to start with the 4 internal states. And this is not a surprise, right? I think all of us have these 4 interstates. There's more states, but the 4 fundamental ones, in my opinion, are spiritual. And, I have the Dalai Lama, who is a spiritual leader, as an example. LeBron James, physical. He's the NBA All-Star, right? And then Warren Buffett, the magnet of all things related to investing and then of course, Oprah Winfrey on emotional intelligence. So these are the 4 internal states that contribute to our personal brand. And the line here is a visual representation of your brand. They're open to represent that these icons here are very open. That's why, even though we don't know them, we see them. We have a sense that of who they are, what they stand for, what they are about, as if we know them personally. But we don't, right? I think they've done a great job. So here, I'm going to go through each of the internal states. And if you would like to dive a little deeper, here are some questions for you to ask yourself. Spiritual. Do your moral values and spiritual beliefs inspire self-love, self-acceptance, or shame or guilt, right? And depending on how you answer, you could explore these solutions. Create a practice that aligns and centers and connects you to your higher self, your creativity, bringing your peace and fulfillment. The next is your physical. What is the state of your physical health and well-being? What is your eating habit? What is your exercise habit? Are you maximizing your health? And then, of course, emotional intelligence. What is the state of your self-awareness? Do you practice self-regulation? Are you socially aware? How are your relationships? Do you have good relationships? If you don't, then consider exploring some options that will help you increase your EQ. And then finally, our mental state. What is the mental state of your, what is the state of your mental capacity, your intellect, and your abilities to learn? And some people equate this to mental health, but mental health and emotional intelligence kind of are connected. So those are a deeper dive into the internal states. Here's another model that I like to share with you to help bring in the connection between your external and your internal. So when you post on social media, you are communicating your personal domain more than likely. And if you post on LinkedIn, you're more than likely going to communicate your work domain. But all of your internal states influence and affect your external domain, right? Your personal and your work life. It's all interrelated. And your beliefs, how you take care of yourself, your friends, your family in the personal domain, of course, connects to your work domain. And when you are solid at the core, other external influences like COVID, stress, health issues, and all that, it could